is Thursday, May the 7th. We're getting an NFL schedule here today. This is the PFF Forecast. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have a good friend of the podcast, but he's never been on the podcast.
It's true.
Austin Gayle is in the house. Eric, it was originally his idea. I can't take credit for it. It was a really good idea. And I'm really excited that it was today because we have some good news to talk about. So this will be a lot of fun. We're going to talk to Austin, and then we've got a couple of really good reviews that came in with questions that we'll talk about, and we'll do a little division odds conversation at the end, because what does the season schedule potentially mean for those? So that being said, let's rock. Austin, welcome in, bro.
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. This is an honor, a privilege.
Eric, we have to start with this. This Earl Thomas thing is just incredible. Austin, I need your thoughts.
Honestly, and it's unfortunate to say, but I'm happier that it wasn't like Earl Thomas, significant domestic violence. I just didn't like. You had that feeling when you saw the Instagram video that like this was going to be like somehow worse than it was. I know it was obviously terrible for Earl Thomas, like being held at gunpoint, like it was bad, honestly life threatening. But I just would have hated to see another NFL player like do like some just ridiculous act against a woman. I couldn't bear it. So it was somewhat a relief, but at the same time, like a wild story, start to finish. And then on the video, he says these things happen, and then when you see the actual story, it's like, dude, I don't know. I don't know how often these things happen.
I'm not sure these things exactly happen.
I mean, here. You said that you were glad it wasn't something that he did to his wife. I would argue that walking in, quote, to see Earl and Seth, who's his brother, not PFF Seth, not Seth Galina, but Earl and Seth in bed with other women, that's gonna be pretty jarring. I would be weirded the hell out if I saw a significant other in bed with his brother. It's not a good story. The interesting thing about it, though, is it probably has very little impact on Earl Thomas and playing for the Ravens. Though, like, there are some disturbing things in there, right? Like, there's the whole she was mad at him for, like, a drinking issue that he was having. He has this gun that's just laying around that she finds. It's a quarantine, and he's getting Airbnbs with his brother and random women. I don't know. That worries me a little bit.
Having a random gun, like, I was having just a random gun laying around there is sort of like I don't know, when it comes to like relationships and things like that, isn't that just like that's just like a bad, especially like during a quarantine where everything's a little bit more,
yes.
Also
charged, I guess.
It stemmed from a previous altercation where I think in the beginning of that story, it says that she was chasing him with a knife and he had a gun and they're like running around the car. Like this just sounds like, I don't know, man. It's a scary situation. Like I would agree. I think he says that in the video. Like I think it's a scary situation for sure what they're both in.
He made the mistake of saying that it was a bad way to interrupt his birthday breakfast too.
Oh, I forgot about that part, honestly.
That's probably something you should leave out, right? Wait, was his
brother and the thing they were doing, the breakfast? I don't know. Like, was that?
Yeah, is that like his birthday? Do I have to look up an Urban Dictionary? Like, is that?
And maybe our assumptions are false with what they were doing with the girls in bed. It could have been a bed and breakfast type of thing. It could have been breakfast in bed, mimosas, the whole lot. Which I mean,
the girls were just
like a platonic breakfast.
Yeah,
it could have been like. She could have been like the waitress or something.
It's he and his brother's birthday ritual.
Stop.
Far be it from me to judge.
This is true. I don't have any brothers, so I can't relate. Though I will say it's a good thing I don't have a gun. If I did during quarantine, I would throw it away. If I I would just like not.
Quarantine is testing relationships. That's fact. Like that is.
My girlfriend literally looked over at me as if, that'd be a smart thing to do. All right, that was our Earl Thomas side of the segment. Hopefully, we can get more references to Earl Thomas throughout the podcast. Austin, your story is great, and I know that on like your own podcast, you don't have as much time to talk about how you ended up at PFF, what you do at PFF, and that we want to give you that opportunity. So give us the like shortish version of where you're from and how you got here.
Gotcha. Well, I'm from Oakland, California, born and raised in Oakland. And but I did not go to Oakland schools after 5th grade. My parents wanted me to be an inter-district transfer and go to other schools. So I wasn't like, didn't go to Oakland Tech or those things, but I did live in Oakland for majority of my life, and then went to San Diego State, graduated in 2017 with a degree in liberal studies and a minor in journalism. So how that worked was I really wanted to be a math teacher. I wanted to be a math teacher like through and through. And I think part of it's because like a lot of people that don't know what they want to do want to be teachers because it's all they kind of know. I think that's part of it. But also I really liked math. I thought I was good at it, you know, whatever that was. And I also liked working with kids. So that was what I was pursuing. And then like I really had an interest in football as well. I coached at the high school level when I was in college. And then I did some I started my own website. TheDraftPulse.com, dude. It was terrible. No one read it, but like I was super excited about it. And then that led to like a handful of unpaid writing opportunities with various like, let's call them SB Nation sites, like those types of sites where you're kind of writing with those sites. And that led to an unpaid internship with San Diego Union Tribune, and then I had Fox Sports San Diego was my first like paid opportunity, and then I started to think, you know what, maybe this teacher thing could be put on hold, and I could pursue this writing thing. And then I was the editor at the newspaper, sports director at the radio station. I had another opportunity with Fox Sports San Diego, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to swing the bat here. I'm going to apply to a bunch of writing jobs. And I applied to over like 250 places and got 3 responses, despite like what I thought was a pretty decent resume, because I was doing all this unpaid stuff. And I was a part-time analyst at PFF. I was a writing tutor at San Diego State. Like I was trying to flex on this resume tough. And it still 3 places heard back. Big Ten wrestling for the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Yes.
Softball, high school softball in Baltimore, bad area of Baltimore. There is a 4th opportunity, but it was
Is there a good area of
Kansas.
Baltimore?
I don't know. And then it was this full-time offer in Cincinnati with PFF, being a customer service guy. So I was like, you know what? It's not writing. That's okay. I'd rather do that, I think, than go to Lincoln and cover wrestling, because I wanted to be in football. So I go to be a customer service guy in Cincinnati, but I know I have to write. 9 days in, I've already submitted resumes to the Cincinnati Enquirer, City Beat, and Fox Sports Ohio. I get part-time gigs with all 3. So I start freelancing and covering high school football here in Cincinnati. I was covering Reds games, Columbus Blue Jackets for Fox Sports Ohio. And then I was doing food like reviews and food stories for City Beat, which is actually a lot of fun. And I learned a lot from that. But I was writing more and more. And then I eventually stopped those opportunities when PFF gave me an opportunity to write a little bit more and edit even for the site. And that's when kind of now developed into what I'm doing now. That wasn't super short, and I apologize.
Well, the cool thing about the food reviews is that we know like where to go downtown now.
Exactly. Right. I've been to everywhere. I feel like I have a good story from those, actually. I'll drop this story. There's this place called Shadow Breads in Cincinnati that was owned by
Steve Palazzolo.
Yeah, not Steve Palazzolo. But it was owned by this guy who's like baker through and through, like born with an apron and flour. Like it just looked like this guy was all he wanted to do. And he made an agreement to his long distance wife in Minnesota that when his kid was 18, he'd move to Minnesota. It was like a 16-year agreement. He made the agreement when he was 2. Finally, that happens, and she makes him do it, and he has to give up this bakery that he's like literally poured his life into, and he sells it to his accountant. And I'm interviewing this accountant who's taking over, and I'm like, is the scariest interview I've ever done because he's so nervous. And I'm asking him, what do you plan on doing? It's a simple question. What do you plan on doing to replace, obviously, this god of a baker that's going to Minnesota? And he's like, I can't answer that. And it was like weird as hell, dude. It was like he didn't want to answer questions about the bakery. Like he didn't want to answer questions about the changes. Like I ended up having to tell the editor, like, dude, I don't know if I can write this story. This guy's sketching me out. Like I don't know if it's turning into like a money laundering thing, but like it was wild that this very good bakery that I used to go to all the time, was right by the PFF office, got sold to this accountant. I don't even know if it exists now. So that's one of the City Beat stories I had.
Can't believe we haven't gone back.
Well, when's the last time any of us have been? I mean, Austin, you live downtown, kind of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when's the last time any of us have actually been? There's no way that made it through COVID-19.
I doubt it. Yeah, I doubt it.
no
I mean,
chance.
they had these peanut butter like chocolate explosion cookies before the accountant took over, and then they stopped with those because the accountant didn't like peanut butter. Is that not insane?
That's
just
ridiculous.
insane. Like this guy, like completely.
What would be the football equivalent of that?
That'd be like Neil not liking the like fantasy and us not having fantasy.
It's true. It's true.
It would be like Mike McCarthy not liking, the the read give, with Dak, and then just like throwing it out.
Getting rid of it.
Yeah.
So I went to draftpulse.com.
Is it still there?
It's still there. And,
oh my God, I'm going.
I found one of the last things here. So this was, let's see, where is this? This is a post Super Bowl mock.
Oh man, is it fire?
So this is 2015. You have Mariota going first to the Bucks. You've got the Titans taking Leonard Williams. This is where it gets really interesting.
Oh man.
You've got Ty Sembrello, offensive
Dude, I
tackle,
love
Colorado
Ty Sembrello
State,
coming out.
going to the Jaguars. You have your Raiders taking Randy Gregory at 4.
Nice.
Dude.
The Skins,
Nebraska Cornhusker.
The Skins interestingly took Landon Collins.
Then
the Jets took Jameis Winston, which would have been awesome. You had Shane Ray going to Chicago, and then you had Vic Beasley going to Atlanta, which
dude, I was a freaking gem, man. You guys should have hired me way earlier, man.
I didn't realize that you were such a draft Nick prior. Like, I figured you were just a talented guy that adapted.
Yeah, I did that because I felt like it was like an opportunity where like you didn't need to cover a team to be kind of good at it. And I feel like that's another reason why draft Twitter kind of takes over. Like you don't need access to write about it. Like you just can watch YouTube highlights and have takes. Like, and my takes were bad. That's where I was. But like when I started writing with San Diego State, they were, I was like, oh yeah, I would like to be on the football beat. It's like, yeah, that's reserved for juniors and seniors. And it's like, you can write men's tennis. And I wrote men's tennis for a year. And like, I feel like I got better as a writer because I had no idea what I was doing.
Right.
Like I wrote my first ask at the Cincinnati Enquirer. They were saying, we really appreciate sending in the samples, the writing resume, all that stuff. How many times have you covered lacrosse? It's like, oh, a handful of times. Never covered lacrosse. I went to the state, did to cover the state championships in lacrosse, and was like literally Googling the rules.
Are you
like,
reading rules on the way?
I was reading the rules on the way, and like it was wild. Then they had like their other writer that was there who was covering, I think, the bigger teams was like, hey man, you want to go on camera and like interview the winning team? Like, what, dude? I'm like so young. I was like, dude, I don't know. And then
you need to find this video.
I interviewed Eli Rabinold, 14, 15-year-old sophomore who like dominated state championships. I asked her, she had like an 8-goal game. And I was like, oh man, like what went into this game, blah, blah, blah. And she just looks at me and she says, it was awesome. I didn't have a quick enough follow-up. I just kind of stared at her and it was weird. It's like, I thought she was going to ride it out a little bit. But yeah, I had some, the interview days were great. Interview days. I mean, the Cincinnati Enquirer days were fun.
I'm going to find this video. I've already found an article that you wrote on lacrosse, and hopefully I can find the video here.
You'll get there. You'll get there.
I can share with the world. That's what I need. That's what I need.
What Austin? So here's a question that we've been asking people. What has been your one like coronavirus like habit?
Ooh. I have bought boxed coffee at absurd amounts here because the coffee shops are closed, and I'll take the bag out of the box and just like have it on my desk and just light it up all day long. I do not have one right now. I'm out. So I just went to the coffee shop to grab some, but like I need to get another box. Like I'm just like been nursing these bags. Like it's bad, dude. My coffee habit's gotten worse somehow.
Is it like boxed wine? It's like
it's exactly like boxed wine, but for iced coffee.
Do you ever pick up the bag and walk over and slap the bag?
I have.
Do you ever ask Haley to come over and hold the bag for you so you can slap it?
I have as a joke with Haley, I think once or twice, but it also like and it's a lot of coffee, man. I don't know. It's crazy. I like it though. It's good.
It can't be good coffee either.
I like the coffee actually. It's called Walking Bear. A little shout out to Walking Bear, or like I don't know if it's Crawling Bear, Walking Bear. Regardless, it's good.
Eric, what are you doing for coffee? Because both of you consume. For people that are not in the PFF offices, there are no two people that consume more coffee than the both of you. But neither of you make coffee. Now, Eric,
okay.
I think you've adapted though, right?
Yeah, so me or my wife will make coffee. The last couple of days though, we've been short, and instead of going to the grocery store and getting more, we have been ordering from a place called Mad Llama in Madeira, Ohio over here. Mad Llama. But
That sounds
good
fire.
news, I guess. Starbucks next to my house is opening today. It was gone for 2 months, so we'll see
That's
if
huge.
we'll see if I continue my my basically making coffee at home.
You've got a French press though.
I do. Here's the thing. Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've been consuming nearly as much coffee as I used to at the office, but
Shame.
I still am.
I've been doing the same amount of coffee that I normally do, which is a giant cup in the morning, and I wean myself off of doing one in the afternoon. But of late, there's been a place that's doing like you can order on the app and walk over and pick it up. And that has been my guilty pleasure. So I've been like getting kicked out of the apartment because I'm so loud. So I'll go take a call outside and I feel bad for myself. So I've been ordering myself coffee, like an Americano or something like that. But the other thing that I've noticed is just every single evening, it's like, would a glass of tequila or wine really be the worst thing in the world? And the answer is always like, no, it's not. It's not that terrible.
Yeah. I think I've taken an inordinate amount of radio hits while walking like down the street. And like a couple times I've been called on it. And then I just like make a big joke out of like not wanting to be 300 pounds when this whole thing is said and done.
Austin, how do you feel about that? Do you think I think that's a little outside of, if I have someone on my podcast, like if you were right now walking around Cincinnati in the blowing wind, I'd be kind of pissed.
Yeah.
Can I get a ruling on whether Eric taking
I've stopped doing it. Hey, stop shaming me. I've stopped doing it. I'm just saying.
Taking radio hits during a podcast? Wait, what?
No, taking radio hits while walking.
Oh, no. I've done that before too, and it's bad. Like it's like one guy called me out like on the things like it sounds like you're getting attacked by bobcats because the wind was so bad. Like it was like I always stay away from it because I know like there's so many variables you can't control. Like there could be literally construction, all that stuff. Like I've done it walking and then you like hide in like a parking lot and then someone like tries to come up to you because you're like hiding and looking weird and they're like, no, go away. It's bad.
Yeah, I have like this special gift of like not caring what my neighbors think. And so, if I'm just like yelling about Grant Delpit, in the middle of the street, like everybody, like there's a lot of leverage you can have with like no shame at all.
The funny thing about PFF is that we had a podcast that started and it ended up being Sam and Steve. And so we were like, okay, well, we're just going to do podcasts with two dudes. Like that's just what we're going to do. And somehow they put Eric and I, the two like biggest assholes on the planet, on the same podcast. If one of us cared more about others, I think we'd be more successful. But the fact that both of us just like are kind of impervious to what others say is
no. I care about. No. Here's the thing. I care about other people.
No,
I care about other people when they're well, let's say feelings are frivolous. Then I give it the right amount of care.
Okay. Whatever. I don't believe you, but I want to talk about the season a little bit. We have had some conversations about, we're trying to prepare for the best and the worst. So the schedule's coming out and it's like, okay, this is really good. This is great news. But also, if football doesn't happen, we're thinking about that too. Austin, where are you right now? Are you on the side of all of football is going to happen? Are you on the side of half of football is going to happen? Are you, I don't think football is happening. Where are you at right now?
Man, I mean, it's tough. I think I read a lot about it and trying to figure out and trying to put myself where I want to be. Like, it sounds like something that's giving me hope is, the goals of the NBA and the goals of Major League Baseball to try and get things going in June and potentially start back up in July. That gives me hope in terms of having a season full without fans. I am 100% aligned. The best case scenario is a full season without fans. I don't think, or like maybe best case scenario, like in super rose-colored glasses, is they allow like 25% of the stadium to be filled and like go by social distancing. But that's might even be too rose-colored. I think there is a chance. I don't know what to make of them moving the non-conference games to the first 4 weeks. Like, I don't know if that's an entertainment play or if that's like trying to get some of those done and then follow those up with, you know, the division games to like kind of have a level playing field. I don't know. Like, I think I'm interested in why they're making that decision. Like, I don't know if it's purely an entertainment play, or is it to kind of stack division games later in the year so that like every division game really, really matters. I don't know. I hope it's an entertainment play.
Well, if they have to cancel, so I'm going to be very interested to see if they go all of the out of conference division games first, because that would lead me to believe that they think there's a decent chance those get canceled, and that there's a 12-game season. And that's why I will not be surprised if opening night game is like, that's not that exciting of a game. It's Kansas City at home against Carolina. They're going to be 17.5-point favorites. And we don't care because people are going to be so happy to watch this if it happens. And if we have to cancel it, like, boo-hoo. So if they did come out and they had, let's say they had Kansas City at home against the Chargers, that would give me a lot of reassurance.
Gotcha. That's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, agree with that.
But is it? Yes, I think it's very. So here's my. I think it's all that aspect of it is less negative maybe than we maybe portended to be, because if they weren't preparing for the possibility that they would need to push the season back 4 weeks, I'd be more concerned than them putting sort of a like planning for a 16-game season, preparing for, or, you know, hoping for the best and preparing for the worst, right? Like, I'd almost be a little bit, and we've seen it, like they've taken a lot of stuff seriously when, you know, the two of us were kind of like, God, I really hope football doesn't think it's God here and can overcome anything. Like, to me, the fact that they've put the schedule the way that they have, or they're thinking about putting the schedule the way that they have, to me says that they're going to take this seriously, and hence they're going to have a better chance of beating it.
You guys, I'm worried. My biggest worry is what happens. So that the other, because I could see the negative side of other leagues coming back first. So let's say the NBA comes back first and their plan doesn't quite work out, and they've got a team, let's just say like half a team gets COVID-19, gets coronavirus. By the way, I never know which one to say. I don't know which one makes me sound less pretentious. Is it COVID-19?
I like COVID. I kind of like COVID.
You just like,
I don't know though.
I'm
COVID?
anything but the Rona, I feel like, works.
Yes, okay. Agreed. The Rona is awful.
So if an NFL team is going to come back, they're, I would assume, a bigger risk than an NBA team because it's bigger, and that, you know, they're just going to have to be in a closer quarters. If an NBA team comes back and half a team gets coronavirus, does that mean that the NFL is screwed, or is the NFL just going to say, you know what, that was the NBA, they've messed it up, we've got a better plan? Does it help or hurt that other leagues are coming back? I'm not sure.
I think it helps. I honestly do, because I think it'll give them, you know, other leagues opportunities to see like what works and what doesn't. And I think you see what like Korea's doing and like testing players as they enter the stadium or on their way to the stadium. I think Eric has mentioned that, but like that's like the process that I think will work. It's like a lot of testing, a lot of, you know, obviously like social distancing and those things to try and make sure that when the players do get to the game and all of the, you know, personnel that's like the coaching staff and stuff that's there, they all have been tested. They're all in a good place and you're ready to rock and roll. Like, I think that's got to be the play. And if you do that, I'm and no fans, I'm convinced that I think it could work.
I mean, my opinion about what this looks like aside, like one of the biggest concerns for football has to be how it looks if they're the first mover, right? Because, you know, they don't, if every single league says, hey, this is too dangerous, and football decides like, no, it's fine, then that's a risky proposition for the NFL. So if other sports are first movers, I think it takes a lot of pressure off the NFL.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
a
in
good
terms
point.
of an appearance standpoint, and
Yeah.
college football as well. I mean, like there's a ton of, you know, we've talked about this on our show, like, you know, 2 or 3 weeks ago with Kevin, but it's like, you know, there's a ton of like, you know, how everything looks, and you know, the differences in, you know, viewers aside between like something like the NBA or NHL and the NFL notwithstanding, like I think it does help the NFL to be prepared, which is huge. I honestly, you know, the fact that they're going through protocols here is good. I mean, you know, they have months to do so, and they are, which is great. But also that other leagues might go before them, I think it's just a positive if you want football to happen.
What about the idea that, so like the Major League Baseball is like, okay, we need to shorten our season because we think there could be a relapse, and we don't want to be in the middle of the season when that happens. The NFL doesn't have that luxury. They would theoretically be right smack dab in the middle of the season if this came back in the late fall, winter. Is there a way that they could build contingency into that? Because I was trying to think of, would you have the out of conference games to start, and then you would push all the important games later, and that's actually more risky. Whereas if you had a set of division games to start the season, you feel like you can start the season, and then maybe you have a chunk in the middle where you have more flexibility if you needed to cancel things.
Well, I do think that that's what they're doing, right? Because most of the division games, like, aren't they doing the intra-conference games after that? So,
Well,
like the common opponent games or whatever. Like, I do think that that's kind of what they're doing, isn't it?
what is it? I thought it was going to be out of conference games, 4 to start, and then I didn't know what was going on from then. I didn't know if they were going to go right into the out of division but inside conference, or
Oh
if they were going
man,
to
and push the division games to the back end of the
push the
Yeah.
season.
So
division games.
this is the equal place conference. So they're basically going from least important to most important. So week 5 and 6 is basically an equal place conference game. So for example, you know, Kansas City is going to play New England because they both played, you know, we're in first place. And even though the AFC East doesn't play the AFC West, you know, that's where the last 2 games of the schedule come from.
So my take on that is actually that they are not planning to make any plays on a relapse. They're planning, if
To just
anything,
go
to
forth.
go to either, you know, say like, hey, we can't start on time. We're canceling the first 2 games
Right.
of the season, or first
or
4
the
games
first
of the
6 games of the season.
Exactly.
Or
But I don't think I think the NFL is preparing to delay the start by virtue of canceling these non-important games, and then just play the really important games, or obviously play the whole season. They're obviously planning on that as well. But like, I think the contingency plans will be, oh, we can't do it yet. First 2 games are off. You know, can't do it yet. Next 2 games are off,
Yeah.
and you keep going until you get to the more important games.
My thought would be, the thing that has given me most hope for the NFL, I've said this a couple of times, is that they have forged ahead with doing the things that they thought they could do, even though they had to change a lot of things to do it. Free agency, the NFL draft, are both examples. Once they start delaying things, that is when it's hard to come back, because you start setting a standard for, hey, we have to get here to come back, and those are hard to meet, especially because of where our nation is in terms of acting like as a whole to get things done.
Yeah.
So that the second we have to delay 1 week, I worry about a snowball. I think it is really important that they do everything they can to set parameters around which they can get the first game played. That to me is just massive.
And I don't know why. I think the preseason has to have a target on its back. Like, I think the preseason has been talked about as one of the more pointless parts of the NFL season, regardless. I think you have to think that the contingency plan includes like removing all preseason games or something along those lines. Because like I just don't think those are going to last if push comes to shove.
I kind of assumed that.
Yeah, I assumed it too. But then they're saying, we're going to come out with a preseason schedule in addition to a regular season schedule tonight. Like,
usually the preseason schedule comes out before the regular schedule. So even then there's been like a sort of a change in the system.
I see that as an example of what I just said, which is we are going to do everything as usual so that we don't start down the slope that can get more and more slippery. We're going to make sure everything is the same, and we're going to adapt those things to fit within our current system, as opposed to canceling things where then people can criticize and say, hey, you canceled preseason, but you won't cancel the regular season. Like, things haven't changed that much. So,
dude, yeah, because that's a tough question to ask.
right?
Like, hey, you canceled the preseason because you were, obviously, acting on, COVID-19 potentially disrupting the league or affecting the health of the players. But like, regular season is just too important to have that same mindset. Like, that would be a dangerous game to play by the NFL. But I mean, they've already done that in some ways. Like, our OTAs not as important as the regular season. Are because like training camp's going to be abbreviated. You're not going to have rookie OTAs, I don't think. Like, I'm interested to see, like, because like right now is when rookie OTAs are normally starting. It's like the second week, third week of May, and I don't think those are happening. Obviously, it's like how much of this abbreviated offseason is going to affect player performance as well, and like the health and injury risk too.
Everyone talks about how the cuts in preparation and practice time have hurt, offensive line play, for example. It'll be interesting for me to see the difference, because this is just, I hate doing this, but I still do it anyways, which is like, hey, this is my life situation. I wonder how I can make an inference about what is happening elsewhere. So for me, it's been really hard to work out because I didn't buy any weights because I'm stubborn and I'm living in a studio. So like, I'm doing all this body weight stuff. I'm not in the greatest shape I've ever been in. I'm certainly not in like football shape, right? If I were to classify myself as ever being in that situation. Are there players who have way less luxury and are actually not making enough money to stay in tip-top shape over the course of this time? And are there certain players that are at a threshold where they can? Are there teams that have done a better job of helping their players during quarantine to stay in shape? Like, all of those things are interesting to me. Yeah. Are there going to be teams that it comes out, it's like, yeah, we just had like half our team that just didn't work out, a la Ryan Leaf like 22 years ago. And
the Ryan Leaf story is awesome.
Like, well, we saw this though. I mean, in 2011 when they had the lockout, Bryant McKinney showed up to the Vikings training camp over 400 pounds, and they just cut him. Like
that's me right now.
They
Eddie
just
Lacy apparently would just be, but Eddie Lacy I heard someone say Eddie Lacy's cut up now.
He's in. Go check out his Instagram. Eddie Lacy. I'm so happy for him because he was just dogged so badly, and he seemed like a good dude, and he seems to be living his best life now. Anyways. So
the work ethic though, it's like, it's going to be out, like, in addition to being like financially capable of still having a very good diet, still being able to work out regularly in like a very good gym that allows you to kind of like best prepare yourself. Like, there's that financial difference, but also like work ethic difference is going to matter here too. Like, guys that are more willing to kind of prepare themselves for the season while others are kind of taking advantage of working from home, as we've kind of seen too. Right. I think you could see that. Like, there's going to be that difference in work ethic and obviously financial standing between like which players are prepared and which aren't. Like, if the season does happen, how many stories for like the first 4 weeks will be about guys just not being in shape and not being prepared. Like, it'll be dominating. It'll be dominating like the news cycle. And like, I don't know, like I think you could see some high profile players potentially like just simply not be ready, like just not be ready to produce it the way you expect.
Who's the highest profile guy that you could see just showing up and be like, "Wow, are you serious?"
That's a good question. I don't know. There aren't like Big Ben. Big Ben, that's a good one. I think Big Ben's a great call.
I thought of Big Ben, but then I was also like, Big Ben is basically prepared for quarantine his whole life because I don't think he goes to the gym anyways.
Wilson.
Yeah.
Wilson is interesting.
No. I was saying Wilson as in like he's Castaway. He's yelling at the ball.
Russell Wilson is an interesting one though because he has a cool family. They're just hanging out at home.
I mean, his hair is going to look like Steve's hair by the time it's all said and done. That's the real.
Oh man, it's not a forecast pod without a Steve hair roast. You got to
and a bread roast. All right, we'll get you out on this. What if you had to pick a matchup that you're most excited to watch this coming season, either team or player? What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the one that everyone's kind of hyping up is that Tampa Bay Chiefs game. Like, I think that could be awesome to watch. I think both teams. I think obviously strengths on the offensive side of the ball. It's going to be high scoring. I think it's in Tampa Bay in with Tommy Tampa. I can't get on board with Tampa, by the way. Like it's either
weird.
Tommy Tampa
Yeah,
or Tampa
I'm
Brady.
with
Like
you.
Tampa is awful. Like that's just a terrible nickname. But
Yeah,
I think that
it's-
matchup would be very fun, and I think it would give both teams a real opportunity to see how much they could shoot up the scoreboard, and I think it would be, especially because it will be early in the season now. Like hopefully it doesn't get canceled because I think it would be freaking awesome to watch.
That was the one I was going to pick, but that's a good one.
I mean,
for
it
sure.
is. That's the game, and they should put it in. This is what they should do. I hope Roger's listening. The one place that football can be played is Jerry World. No games week 1 except for this game.
Yeah,
it's played in Jerry World. It's like the Super Bowl before the season starts. You push everything back a week. You have this game. Everyone watches it. And it's in a neutral site, and then you start the season the next week. So, like, that would, in my mind, and the reason I actually think this makes sense, it's not going to happen, but why it would make sense, is it would get the ball rolling. I think they could do a very good job of making sure one game is for sure played.
How much betting handle would be on that game, though?
It would be
unreal.
What would the rating for that game would be Super Bowl-esque? Like, if it was, like have NBC do the thing.
Agree.
It would be absolutely incredible. Put it on a neutral site. I don't think either team would complain about that. What do you think the spread is in that game?
If it's played in Tampa, I think
what is a neutral site?
Neutral site. So if it's neutral site, Kansas City -3.5.
Yeah, especially if it's week 1, you just don't know what.
Right. I mean, Brady could be washed. I don't think Brady's washed, but he could be washed.
It's not. Brady is not washed, Eric. Brady is going to have.
I said I don't think he is, but
Brady is near the top of my.
Who's washed and has been hyped up though way more than he should be is Rob Gronkowski. Like Rob Gronkowski, you want to talk about guys who are not going to show up prepared? Dude, Rob Gronkowski is not going to be ready to rock and roll to play inline tight end. Like I know they've talked about potentially moving him in,
he's
like
not
this big slot, big slot or whatever. But I don't know. Like I don't know how easy it's going to be for him to come in and play this year. Like I'm tempering my expectations.
I said this a couple weeks ago, but Rob Gronkowski has played football every year for what was it? Like 18 years. There's a level of I am used to putting up with like the pains, and I'm lifting heavy and all these different things. And then you stop doing that for like a year and you're like, oh, I feel amazing. I've never felt this good. And you think that means that you're in a position to just go back to doing it. And in reality, it's like your body being like, finally, I don't have to do this again. And the shock of having that back again, I can see him coming out and being like, on fire week 1. And then week 2, it's like, yeah, Rob Gronkowski pulled like 6 muscles. He's not going to be playing for 4 more weeks. Like that to me is what happens.
I'm with you, man. I think that could easily happen.
All righty. AG, we appreciate you. Thank you for hanging out with us. You should check out, if you're not already, I can't imagine there's anyone that doesn't already follow the 2-for-1 drafts feed with you and Mike. But if you don't, you absolutely should. It's fantastic. Some of the best interviews, draft content is fantastic. So go check it out.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for having me. We got some good interviews lined up as well. Talking to some 2021 prospects already, some analysts and stuff. Should be a lot of fun on 2-for-1.
Tease me a little.
So the guys we're targeting right now are guys that like PFF is probably going to be higher on than others, like Marvin Wilson, Florida State, Caleb Farley, Virginia Tech, Dylan Moses of Alabama. Have you heard the Dylan Moses story, George?
No.
Dylan Moses, at 14 years old, at an LSU camp in 8th grade, ran a 4.46 and got an offer from Nick. And got an offer from Nick Saban that day in 8th grade, a full ride. He eventually became a 5-star recruit and never wavered, went to Alabama. At 9 years old, there's a story in the Players Tribune that I would encourage you to read from 2017. At 9 years old, his dad would have him wake up at 6 before elementary school, 400 push-ups, 800 sit-ups, 10 minutes of jump rope. And then he'd have him go on the bus. And when he comes back, if he didn't have track practice, they'd run for days and do more training at home or whatever. This guy, they talk about like Bama built different. This guy's literally quite literally built in the lab. Like I don't understand. Like he's like one of the more athletic freaks we've got in
George,
the game
we gotta put this content in written form on the website. We can't have this just going on draftpulse.com.
This is true.
Like this has got to be like not only on his podcast, but it's got to be on written form on the website.
You can find all of this at the draftpulse.com. Austin Gayle's greatest website.
I don't know why we're pimping your podcast. You just got to send people to draftpulse.com.
Send people to the Draft Pulse, man. I could go back to it. Well, who knows?
that had a little twinge of Todd Marinovich to it. With
Dude, it does. It honestly does. You read the full article, it's kind of scary because like, and he said, so 400 push-ups, 800 sit-ups, and 10 minutes of jump rope at 9 years old would take him about an hour and a half. Like 400 push-ups an hour and a half for an adult is like kind of aggressive. Like that's a lot of push-ups to do in an hour.
Here's the one thing I'll say is that push-ups are way easier for kids than they are for adults.
True. And I wasn't there to see if he was really doing good form. Like I would like to go back. No, I'm just kidding. But still, regardless.
That's not saying that it's easy. I'm just saying like I don't think an adult could do that because 400 push-ups for an adult would be really tough. But like for a kid, your body weight is way lower.
Imagine so I always found it interesting too. Like imagine an 8th grader, 14 years old, running a 4.46, and everyone looking at their stopwatch.
I can't imagine.
When I first came to Cincinnati, I was also writing for the Bearcat Journal and covering the Bearcats, and they had these camps where they'd have like local prospects or high school prospects come and run 40s. Like they'd literally just sit there on time and like they don't really react to it. But like imagine seeing a 4.46 from a 14-year-old, and then think about what had to happen for Nick Saban to be the first to offer. This is an LSU camp. He's got spies and shit everywhere. Like how did he get that information so quickly to the point where like, you know what? Give me this kid. I'm ready.
He has moles at LSU.
He's got to.
He planted them when he was there.
It's wild. It's wild that it's just that whole story is wild.
I won't believe it though until I time it myself with my own timer because I may have had 4.95.
Man, I can't imagine. I
need a second time on that. That's ridiculous. 4.46 is flying.
It is.
Man. All right. Well, the draftpulse.com. Check it out. Austin Gayle, guru of all things content. Thank you, brother.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All righty. That was awesome.
That was fun.
Well, I was hoping he was going to slap the bag, though. That was the one thing that, and I think he hasn't. He probably heard me say that, which means that I'm going to get a GIF. We're going to get a GIF of him slapping the coffee bag soon.
I mean, the thing is like, one of the big things that we've missed, during this whole thing is just like being able to like talk shit,
Yeah.
And it's fun to do that, even though, it's not necessarily the most football thing to do. It's fun.
You mean discussing brothers in bed at Airbnbs, bed and breakfast?
Have you read all the stories about Airbnb like tenants going under, and like how like they've like at least let's put a the host. Sorry, let's put a positive spin on it. At least Earl and his brother Seth were like trying to curb that a little bit, right? So they're friends of the people.
That's a good point. I'm actually currently in like a Airbnb situation right now too, where like bachelor party was planned. Really doesn't make a lot of sense to go to Cabo right now. And
be a statistic.
Not good for the host. Well, here's the thing. Even if it was like, I love going to the beach, right? Like I don't have to have other people there to be excited about it. But you imagine it has had no one there for months. Like, is anything open? Like, can I even get a taco anywhere? Like, that's the real question.
Yeah, I mean, that's the tricky thing, right? Is that,
just because things open doesn't mean it's worth going.
Well, I think that's one of the not to talk about the real world here, but like that's going to be like the big thing about everything opening up. Is it just that doesn't mean people are going to go buy things,
Right.
Unfortunately,
just because Vegas opens up doesn't mean. Well, maybe we would go there. But there's
nothing to bet on, so no.
Yeah, right. It depends if the season's starting or not. Okay, so we have a couple things that we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about divisions, and then we've got a couple of reviews that we're going to talk about too to close out. So let's keep this simple and short. We've talked about the schedule a little bit, how we think they might format things, the chances of the first 4 games being canceled, which to me would be a huge red flag that we don't have a season. But assuming that's a possibility that they go no first 4 and then start up, is there a division? Is there a particular team where you're like, this changes the way I view it?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
What's the 49ers like off cut? Like, what's their AFC group this year?
They're playing the AFC East.
Yeah. So I think the NFC West is going to be pretty strong from top to bottom.
Agree.
So if you look at like the AFC East, you look at like New England, what if New England starts 1-3?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does that change everything? I think it does. And we saw it with Detroit last year. There are teams that like this, not decide to tank, but end up just kind of de facto tanking because of the outcomes of like the first 8 weeks of the season, let alone the first 4. I think that's one that, that division could be a bunch of 2-2 or worse teams by the end of September.
You did exactly what I was hoping you would do, which is think of this in a different way than I did and bring up a great point. So I was thinking of, okay, which team is going to have this easy road and get off to a good start? And I thought of Kansas City not having to play the NFC South. If those first 4 get postponed. But I like the way that you're thinking about it, which is, well, let's say we do play these games.
Yeah.
And let's look at the teams that are going to maybe lose more games than they would. And New England is the perfect team because I was thinking, what teams are going to come out the first 4 games and be way worse during those first 4 than they might be during the last 4 or the second half. And the 2 teams have to be New England because of what the hell, like who knows with Stidham. And then Tampa Bay also, I think, is an interesting one. And, just because you don't know how much they've had a chance to gel.
Exactly. And I don't know, like, I'm under the assumption that they're going to play the first 4 games. But obviously they're preparing contingencies, but like, if you're off schedule, it's tougher. And you even think about like, okay, let's look at the flip side. Let's look at groups that have like sort of an easy road of it. Like if you look at the Dallas Cowboys schedule,
so they would play the AFC North.
Right. So we like the AFC North, but let's assume that it doesn't materialize. The Dallas Cowboys finished second in their division. So their first 6 games are going to be against AFC North. Baltimore's tough, but the other 3 teams are beatable. Then you get not the first place team because Philadelphia gets those 2 teams, but the second place team in the other 2 divisions in the NFC. Like that's a better
and that's the NFC West.
Right. So then you get the Vikings instead of the Packers, and you get the Seahawks instead of the 49ers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever. But like that, to me, like those are some helpful, like there's going to be a team that's going to be helped up. Like you look at, like people talk about Buffalo last season as being this great team. Well, what happened to Buffalo last year? Buffalo's first, I think 4 games or 5 of their first 6 were in the state of New York. So we anchor on like them being good, but in reality, what happened? Well, they went to, they went to, the New York Jets and they won. They went to the Giants and won, right? Then they had 2 straight home games, right? So your first 4 games of the season were all in New York. And then you had, Tennessee on the road. Then you had a bye week, and then you had 3 straight home games. Mm-hmm. So you start 6-2. 7 of those 8 games were at home, or in the state of New York, and you had a bye week there, right? That they finished the season 10-6. That's 4-4 down the stretch, and we don't even like think about like 4-5 if you count the playoff game, and we don't even think about that necessarily. And all this does is take even more of the randomness and undo it, right, and push it to the front. We might see some teams that are endowed with pretty easy beginnings.
Yeah, that's another interesting one. The games that are going to get pushed to the forefront where there's a close battle between the top two teams in the division. So like the Eagles and the Cowboys, where one team has a slightly easier go of it than the other. And another might be, the AFC East. So the Bills and the Patriots, both very close in terms of where they're at in Vegas. Let me look. I think the Bills are
slight favorites. Yeah.
Yeah, plus 125, and the Patriots are plus 130. But the Patriots, did win that division last year, right? So they have those harder games up front than the Bills would have. The AFC South is another one, right? The AFC South is probably more interesting because both those teams are legitimately good, like they're Super Bowl contenders, and that there's a difference there, right? The Saints are going to just have to play harder games.
Yeah, well, and that's and then there are some benefits, for example, to a team like Tennessee getting to play a second place schedule, or Indianapolis getting to play a third place schedule. When they're probably better than Houston. Same thing with Dallas getting to play a second place schedule. We don't believe necessarily in the Seahawks, but they're a yard away from being a first place team. Now they get to play a second place schedule. Now Minnesota as well versus Green Bay, like all of those advantages, when you push the games to the front of the season, I think what will be interesting, and I think this will be a fun exercise for us if we get there, is modeling this stuff, right? Because a team's going to be 5-1 or 6-0 or 4-2, and they're not going to be that good. And then we're going to be, fan bases are going to be mad at us for saying, well, the chicken comes home to roost, all this kind of stuff. Like the Falcons had this too. Like the Falcons, what was it, 2018, 17, 18? Like all their division games were in like November and December, right? And it was like, well, what do we even really know about this team? They're facing a bunch of like unfamiliar opponents. We're going to get that for every single team in 2020 if the reports are true.
Yeah, that is fascinating. That'll make it very interesting. It should make it exciting from like someone that is excited to bet on real sports again. Like, like that. That's just going to make it's going to make it more fun to talk about, more fun to bet on.
We're going to have, and then the other thing that's going to be really fun is I believe they're still going to do the 7-team playoff, right?
Yes.
So if you go with that, like if the 7-team playoff is a thing, then, we get a great deal of like variance, right? Like the 7th seed team might not be very good, and they aren't good to begin with, but they might even be more fraudulent here, right? Like it could be a team that starts out, in this abbreviated 5-1, and then, let's say fades down the stretch. Let's say it goes 3-7, they finish 8-8, right?
Yep.
And they stink, but we are anchored to the 5-1 that they have, and they might be worse than the seeds 8, 9, and 10.
So here's my team that happens to, the Seahawks. Yeah. The Seahawks come out, they blitz the AFC East teams. They play slightly easier opponents on the next two. They're 5-1, 6-0, and we have the fun opportunity to say they're not as good as the record indicates for a second straight season. Although this would be more. Yeah,
I like the Seahawks fans though, because the thing about the Seahawks fans is they're like, it's sort of like the person who says like no one's harder on me than myself.
Yeah.
Like
that's
the
true.
Seahawks fans are not. I haven't met delusional Seahawks fans the way that I've met delusional Bills fans and Jaguars fans and Bears fans and Vikings fans. Like
you haven't even mentioned the Packers, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm laying off of them for a little bit, man. It must suck. So whereas Seahawks fans are basically like, yeah, I mean, we're not that good. I guess we'll win a play. Russ will take us pretty far, but let's not pretend that we're any good. And I think that stems from actually having a Super Bowl winning team that was that good, right? And like you sort of see how every outfit since then is sort of paled in comparison.
Do you have another team that we should be on fraudulent watch for?
I don't know, because I've pumped up Arizona, but I think for the very same reason, like the 4th place schedule. AFC East, like Josh. So Kyler Murray is going to be the best quarterback in every single matchup of the first, 4 games of the season, assuming. So like they could be like 4-2, 5-1. And even though we're all like, yay, this is great, like it's probably not going to like last,
Right.
For the very same reason Seahawks, schedule wise, but also they get it even more.
No, that's a good point. I like those. Okay, we've got two reviews that came in that were both really good. So we're going to hook these two people up with some merch or an Edge subscription, depending what they want. First one is from Daniel Konovalov. I think I said that right. Hopefully I do a better job reading this one. Sure. I mean, you had the benefit of hearing me say it and then going a little quicker.
San Diegan.
Right. My question is related to team building and what research PFF may have done regarding A, the time it takes each position to reach its subjective peak, and B, how the subsequent peak is, the slope and I guess band of the peak itself. From such a study, I was curious to see what the optimal team building structure one would take. This sort of doesn't take into account sound draft strategy, best player available in the most important positions, but I'm curious what you will say. We know running backs, defensive linemen, sometimes wide receivers tend to hit the ground running in the NFL, while some other positions take longer to develop, such as cornerbacks, offensive tackles, tight ends. I'm not sure where quarterbacks fall in this umbrella, but it seems highly variable, or maybe that's just amplified by the importance of the position and how much it is emphasized by the media for obvious reasons. What are your thoughts?
It's a really good question. Reach a subjective peak, that's hard to define, although our pal Timo has done a little bit of work looking at sort of like how and generally speaking, the closer to the football you are, the longer it takes for you to develop. The other thing that's important to notice is the closer you are to the football, interestingly, the less valuable our data finds you, only because there are a ton of things, for example, pre-snap penalties and holding and things like that, roughing the passer. Those penalties are almost entirely concentrated negatively on you. But when you do good things, you have to share credit. So, there's a lot of randomness there, but ultimately, like, edge players, offensive linemen aren't as valuable, as maybe the public sees them. But it takes them longer to materialize as well. So, I would say, I mean, the hard part is like, linemen cost money, right? So you sort of have to, I would say, throw numbers at the situation in those circumstances. But don't expect a whole lot out of your top picks, well, and at least early.
That's what I think it is. It's more about understanding your expectations than anything else. So it's a great point. I'm not changing the way that I draft because I'm still drafting valuable positions. And I'm drafting them high because I need players that are good at valuable positions. But what I am going to understand is that there are players who, I think receivers, corners, pass rushers to a certain extent, and pass rushers, are more stable, and that's why they fit in this class. But like, are players that I can go take flyers on in free agency that can help build depth, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm waiting until that point to bring in my superstar. And that's the big point here, which is I think there's a difference between saying I'm going to wait to build depth and I'm going to wait to find a superstar at this position. You are always trying to find a superstar at that position, and you need to find them in the draft because you're not going to pay them, right? The other team isn't going to let them go. So to me, it's all about saying, hey, here are some positions that I can build depth in. Here are also some positions I should stay away from in free agency, like running back, for example, as opposed to changing your draft strategy so much.
Yeah. And that's, and then the other thing is like looking at situations where I would say players tangential to them are viewed as really valuable. So take, for example, right tackles where, let's say, the APY, the top 5 is 11.2 million, right? Yep. Versus left tackles where, the APY of the top 5 is 14, 15 million. Like you get like a little bit of a benefit there as you look at the way Kansas City has sort of built their offensive line. They pay for brilliance on the right side, and they kind of deal with Eric Fisher on the left side. Not that he's bad, but just, he's not worthy of that necessarily top contract. They help themselves there. Another one, which I think is important, is safety. So, you do get, the Eddie Jacksons, the Kevin Bayards, the Tyrann Mathieu, who are in the 14 APY, Landon Collins. But there are tons of players who make, who are plenty good. I mean, that don't make a ton of money. I mean, Trey Boston has been a really elite free safety for 3 years, and he's always sort of available, right? Safeties, for example, if you get a bunch of them that are sort of in that second tier, they can make up for deficiencies at linebacker and corner and stuff like that, and they're not that expensive. And even though it's tough to predict them college to pro to pro, it's okay. And so then that's where you sort of dip your heels into sort of free agency. And again, the other thing that we've, kind of discovered this year is that cornerback play. I mean, you look at, the top guys at corner, Slay, Jones, Howard, Bradbury, right?
Yeah.
Slay had a rough year last year. Howard has had a rough year and a half or so. Bradbury, he had tough assignments in Carolina, but he's not brilliant, right? And then before then, it was guys like Trumaine Johnson, right? It was guys like Janoris Jenkins, and like it's a mixed bag, right? So, that's a place where I think like not only is the value price-wise in the draft, but the value is depth-wise in the draft.
That's a great point. Second review is from Crike Moss. That's his first name. That's pretty baller. He said, been listening and following you guys for almost a year, and you both challenged me to think about the game differently. It's very kind of you. I feel like get a little bit smarter every time. Yada, yada, yada. A bunch of nice things that he didn't need to say. But he said, as my pitch for a future episode, I was listening to the Ringer podcast that you guys did with Kevin Clark, and I'm absolutely here for the QB analysis where you guys view the starting QBs based on the question, would their teammates answer a Zoom happy hour call from them? So you guys should check out that Ringer pod with Kevin Clark. It was a lot of fun. We went division by division, and it was a lot of fun. Should we do a little teaser of this?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's go to the positive side first. 3 quarterbacks you feel pretty confident that their teammates are answering Zoom happy hour calls from them. I'm pretty confident Pat Mahomes' happy hour call is getting answered by everyone. All 52, plus the coaching staff, plus the staff in the stadium are picking up that call.
Yeah, Mahomes is just generally viewed as a cool guy who's also really freaking good. Right? So he gets that.
Who's another one that's up there?
Here's one that I think I'm going to go underneath the radar here. Okay. Yeah. Nick Foles.
Really? In Chicago?
Yes.
You think they're just so excited that it's not? They look at they look at the phone and they go, "Oh man, is this Mitch again?"
Thank God. Yes.
And then they see Foles and they go, "Oh, I'm picking this up."
Here's the other thing about Foles. Won a Super Bowl, right? And he put his balls on the table for 2 straight games and won the Eagles a Super Bowl. Went back to the bench, supported Wentz, right?
Mm-hmm.
Goes back in. That team's for dead. 7-6 or 6-7 or whatever they were in 2018. 3 straight wins, playoff win against the Bears, and then it had New Orleans on the ropes in the divisional round in 18. He's a guy who's like dealt with adversity, right? So in St. Louis, it was an absolute travesty. Like he got traded for Sam Bradford, like got kind of discarded, right? Goes to St. Louis, doesn't play well, but like comes out of it looking like the lesser of 2 assholes, right? As far as, him versus Jeff Fisher.
Mm-hmm.
Goes to Kansas City, plays a backup role, goes to Jacksonville, is gracious about the Gardner Minshew thing. Like, I feel like Nick Foles is like universally liked.
Okay. I think that's
he's earned it, I think.
That's a good one. I'll go under the radar again. I don't think this is like the number 2 guy, but I would say Jimmy G's Zoom call for a Zoom happy hour is getting answered by a very high percentage of the guys he tries.
Mm-hmm. I think Jimmy G is like I think Jimmy G has planned a party or two in the Bay Area.
Yeah, but Jimmy G is the type of guy that doesn't plan a party that he tells everyone about. Jimmy G is the guy that like the day of just decides to throw something together, and you show up and you're like, wow, did you plan this for like months? And he's like, nah, I just threw this together, about 30 minutes ago. Had a few friends over, and it's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
Let's go to the other side of things. Guys that probably aren't getting the phone call answered by as many people as you'd like. I would say, as much as
Can we just go to the NFC North?
Yep. I was going to say the two that come to mind are Aaron Rodgers and Baker Mayfield.
Oh.
Yeah. I love Baker. I think this is almost more a function of the Browns than it is Baker Mayfield. But I'm a little worried about how many people are answering that phone call.
That's fair. I think Baker has quite a bit to prove, right? I
think there's a lot of people that look at the call coming in and go, I don't know what this is about. This could be fun. It also could be not fun. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Obviously, I'm going to go. I think Kirk Cousins is somebody where they're kind of like, you remember in the was it the couples retreat movie?
Yes,
when
that's
Jason
a great first
Jason
60%.
Bateman. They're like, can we not have a slide about ball cancer? You know, like Jason Bateman's the kind of guy. Kirk Cousins is kind of Jason Bateman in that movie.
Oh man, that is a perfect analogy.
And I feel like everybody's just like they're friends with Kirk. He's a nice enough guy. There's really no reason to hate him, but like there's not.
Now,
no one's thrilled about interacting with him.
Jason Bateman gets the couples to go on the retreat, though. I don't know if Kirk gets him to go on the retreat.
Yeah, it's true. although, I mean, let's put it this way: if Kirk said, "Hey, Adam Thielen, we're going to go to Sandals, and I'm paying," I think everybody goes, right? So,
not just Sandals. Come on. You do better than that.
He used to be Eden. What was the place, like the Eden or whatever? That's a great. I got to put that movie on the background today.
Movie, the first 60% of that movie is fantastic. Kirk Cousins would be my winner in terms of like. I just don't think he's getting. He's the best quarterback that's getting less than 50% of people to pick up his phone call.
Yeah, I think so. That's the crazy. Kirk has somehow figured out a way to be very talented, but kind of never like universally the guy. Right.
Okay. Can I give you one more?
Okay.
Sam Darnold.
I was thinking about Darnold.
He doesn't, despite the fact that he got mono, I don't think that's a good thing for him. I don't think there's a lot of people that are like, remember that story that was like, after that one win or something, he went out with the team and was like, just hammered drunk. The guy that gets so hammered drunk that you have to kind of take care of him is not the guy that you're stoked to go
that
to
person's not fun.
Yeah. You want the guy that's always giving you a drink and making sure you're having a great time. And that to me is, this is not personal, obviously. I actually like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold quite a bit. I just don't think they're getting a high return on this Zoom call.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, these are all alphas to some degree, but we're looking at the betas among them. Yeah,
this has nothing to do with the fact that Sam Darnold has struggled thus far in his NFL career. It's more about
Here's the question though: if you're a Jets player, do you pick up the phone if it's Gase or Darnold?
Oh, Darnold. Gase is the one. Gase is getting an eye roll. Gase is getting a throw the phone in the corner. Gase is getting the, when you see you don't just let it ring. You're like, I don't give a shit. And you just click, ignore. Yeah. That's what's happening for Gase. Oh man. All right. This has been fun. Maybe we'll do a full ranking at some point. So both of you guys, thanks for the reviews. Remember, if you want to get some either PFF swag or an Edge subscription, write us a 5-star review with a take, a question, a suggestion for something that we can talk about. And then give us if we read your question, shoot us a DM and we'll get you taken care of. John Turek, we're getting him taken care of. He was the guy that won last week. NFL schedule coming out tonight. We're going to have a live show. We're going to start about 7:45. Both of us are going to be on there. It's going to be a lot of fun. So check that out, and we'll see you guys on Monday. Peace out.